What is up, everybody? As promised, told you I was gonna start making the videos. So a lot of people know me by House. No one really knows me as Joe. So if you ever hear people calling me House, that's why. But let's get in the first video. We're looking at CRVO today. First thing I like to look at is the chart, right? So let's take a look here. You can see a couple recent pumps to 8. One of these, they got patent extension, right? So they get an extra 5 years of their drug when it gets approved. And then another one of these was a private placement. All insiders bought the private placement. It was around $4, but it was about 10, 12 million. So if you look at this chart, this is the year. It's gotten absolutely beaten down, but you can see some high volume has come in, which is pretty bullish. And then also the insider trades are very bullish as well. Now we have to look at the cash on hand and the fundamentals of the company and kind of who's on the board and what's working on. So for me personally, I trade a lot of biotechs. I like biotechs because they give me data readout, drug approval dates, everything to kind of trade into. And you can de-risk yourself selling before some of these approvals and data readouts, but they have to factor in some of the price, so you can get a lot of good swing trades from this. But let's take a look at what CRV really does here. So they burn about $8 million a quarter, which is really cheap, honestly, on the biotech end. But they only have about $20-30 million in cash, which means they have about until the second quarter of 2027, which means they're going to have to raise money, right? But in their most recent raise that was at $4, it also included Joshua Boger, who is the founder of Vertex Pharmaceuticals. Something that was even more clever that I kind of picked up on is in their most recent SEC file, they said that they plan to establish a partnership for their phase 3 in DLB. So now you're probably asking, what the hell is DLB? So DLB is dementia with Lewy body. So you can look at their most recent data, which is right on their corporate presentation. 117% mean change in the dementia rating, which is massive. 75% reduction in progression, which is an even bigger massive thing. And then they also have 50% reduction in their blood biomarker. And you can see that compared to all the other anti-amyloid treatments for Alzheimer's disease, it is 3x the reduction, which is ridiculous. So now you're probably wondering, how common is this disease, right? So it's actually the second most common Alzheimer's. As you can see, there's about 720,000 cases in America, about 1 million in Europe, and about 600,000 in Japan. You can see that they think that their peak revenue for this opportunity is 5 billion plus. Realistically, I don't think that's kind of realistic. I think more realistically, you're going to see 2 to 3 billion. And then on top of that, you're going to have the royalty deal topped in with that. So now we have to look to see where we are with the FDA. So my buddy Moneypenny brings up, yo, check out the FDA designations. I was like, let me take a look. So they got an FDA fast track granted in 2019, which is a really big deal. It means they can expedite the trials faster. And then the company also already reached alignment with the FDA on the design of planned phase 3 trial. And in this case, it was kind of unique because usually companies don't really get a say. But in this case, the FDA granted them all options, which is usually unique in specific circumstances. But their drug held up so well and everything that they granted it for them. And then if you want to look at their other 2 drugs, the other one's for dementia, which they also hold an FDA orphan drug designation, which was granted in 2024 for dementia. And then you also have ALS, which was selected for the expert trials, which is a collaborative program distinct for the FDA designation for like a fast track or an orphan drug status. Something unique about orphan drug status is that you get actual tax credits for the clinical trials. The FDA actually waives a lot of the application fees, and sometimes they grant funding for certain ways. But they also are guaranteed 7 years of exclusive rights. And then they also get 10 in the EU. And usually these cases have about lower than 200,000 people. So another main reason why I really like this drug is because it's a small oral molecule drug. What does that mean? That means that they could take this at home and not go to the hospital every time. It's the convenience. People love the convenience and not having to go in every time, right? And then also, if you want to look at the most recent acquisitions in the biotech space, a lot of them have been oral treatments because look at Turn, for example. They were an obesity drug that was an oral treatment that went from $2.50 to $50 because they ended up getting bought out. You could probably end up seeing this instead of a partnership if the drug is really that legit here. And so now here, this is where I bought in. I have about 72K, so about 20K, 20,000 worth of shares. We're going big on this one. We're feeling a little confident. Me and the boys in the Discord are feeling good. But also, you have to remember, the stock's at 50 million market cap, so very low, cheap float. And if this drug at least gets factored in of some sorts of, say, I was telling you, it could be $1 billion, $2 billion, you're going to have to factor in some of that price. Even if it's 1 billion at 50 million market cap, you're talking about a 10x. Like that's crazy. That's worth the risk in my opinion. So I want big and heavier on this one than I tend to do on a lot of these other shit codes. So